Before we hop into today's video, I have an announcement. Going back to Texas and I'm taking Mariano with me. Meetup game, Austin, Houston. Hope to see you there. What's up YouTube? We are in Hanover, Maryland Live Casino for a vlog, meetup game. Andrew Nimi, Brad Owen. We're gonna get down there, we're gonna mix it up with everyone that came out to support the vloggers.
I'ma give it all I got, like 23, I stay on top, I do it like it's my last shot, we're grinding every day, ain't no other way.
Matt Vaughn, Trevor Savage, Andrew Nimi, Brad Owen, and myself were all in attendance for what was dubbed as the mother of all meetup games. And it didn't disappoint with something like 26 5-5 games up and running on a Tuesday night. The funny thing about poker, especially live poker, is that sometimes we can play poorly or on autopilot, and sometimes we can still win. And after about 6 hours of play, I was hovering around even, not particularly playing well, when this hand came up at the very end of the night. The crazy thing about this hand is that not only do we make the nuts, we do it in a 3-bet pot after the flop checks through, allowing us to get there without investing any money post-flop. Not only do we have the nuts, this board is so good for our opponent's ranges, so I'm fully expecting to get paid so often when I jam all in over the top of a $200 bet for around the size of the pot. After the player in position, the original 3-better folds king-queen, the player out of position ends up calling it off with what he says is queens. And we hold for the huge double, end up winning $647 after 7 hours of play, hitting the bar with the meetup game squad. The next morning, we hit the road on to Savannah, Georgia, where we visited one of the most picturesque places on the road trip thus far, a place called Wormslow Plantation. On to Miami the next morning, where we spent 3 nights on South Beach just relaxing and recharging. I did manage to sneak in one session at the newly remodeled Hard Rock in Hollywood, and that place is unreal. The very first shuffle I was dealt in, I opened, then called a small 3-bet out of position with ace-jack, and after check calling a down bet on the flop, we turned the absolute nuts and check raise all in. After our opponent bet 200, leaving themselves with another 300, it ended up being a cooler, the nuts versus the second nuts. After spending a few days in Miami, we sprinted off to San Antonio, Texas. I was originally going to play in Tampa, but we were kind of tired and we packed it in somewhere around Ocala, Florida. Then from there, the plan was to drive all the way to San Antonio, Texas, but we were hit with an insane rainstorm near the LSU campus in Louisiana. So we pulled over there, stayed the night there. Finally made it to San Antonio the next day, where we made it just in time for the meetup game. Love you too. At Rounders Card Club, which by the way, I really love Rounders. I think that you should check them out if you are near the San Antonio area. They did not pay me to say this. There are a bunch of great rooms in Texas. That's just the way it is down there right now. That's one of the reasons why I'm going back in March to the Houston and Austin areas for about 5 days with Mariano Poker, actually. Let's talk a few hands from San Antonio. The atmosphere was crazy. There were actually a few people following me all around the state. They said that the action at the meetup games was so good that they wanted to be at all the stops, but something tells me that Richard did not need any help in finding a good game. All right, you guys. Make the vlog? Yeah, you're gonna high card?
What's up, guys?
How much you high carding for?
600.
You're gonna high card for $600.
Let's go! Let's go!
He's doing some energy Reiki stuff.
Let's go!
Oh.
Ship it!
So as you can see, the atmosphere definitely is a little out of line, and I had every intention of taking meticulous notes and playing solid, but these crazy Texas meetup games get the best of my attention. Early on in day 1, I find pocket fives in middle position and I ISO raise one limper to $25. The button calls, the big blind calls, and the limper calls. So we end up going 4 ways to a flop of 8-6-3 rainbow. And when it checks to me, I continue for 45. This bet is interesting multi-way. It's mostly designed for equity denial, but it could extract some value as well. Although I never expect better to fold, which is why I'm going to continue on a lot of turn cards, especially after the big blind calls and we go heads up to a turn. The turn is the ace of spades, which now means I'm probably going 3 streets here. He will almost never have an ace in this hand after calling a bet out of position on the flop. So I bet 130 and he reluctantly calls. When the river comes the 8 of diamonds, I now have to abandon my plan of going 3 streets. As you guys know, I hate bluffing river board pairs. People just won't fold often enough. So I shut it down and he does in fact have an 8. Button straddle for $25, 2 limps for 25, and we look down at ace queen offsuit. We make a standard raise to $175. I know it sounds crazy, but let's break this down on why 175 is an actual standard sizing in this spot. My formula is 3 times the big blind plus $25 for each person with dead money out there, plus 1 blind for being out of position. So when you do the math, it comes out to 175. You should have a similar formula in your head on why you choose to raise certain sizes pre-flop. So only the button calls, and after we flop a gutter and continue for $160, the turn brings the jack of spades for the nuts. I want to get 3 streets here, so I bet 350, sizing for around 700 on the river. But we don't have to wait to the river because the button now jams all in on the turn. We obviously make the snap call. We're up against Jack 10 for a $3,500 pot. A little later on, I get all in pre-flop with queens after 3 betting from the blinds and calling a 4-bet jam.
Real, speaking in front of
You got what?
Oh, there you go.
Big flip, yeah. I got queens. No ace, no king. Oh, that's a good flop.
Pretty good flop for queen.
Oh. Good enough to scoop a $2,500 pot here. I've definitely been up and down in this session, but as you can see, I've been on the right side of some big pots. In this hand, I open up Queen Jack offsuit under the gun for 20, a little on the loose side for these rounders games. I'm definitely going to get in a bit of trouble opening this hand under the gun. Case in point, I picked up 4 callers in this hand, but we have no worries when the flop comes Queen Jack 4, and we continue for 60. Button calls, big blind calls, and the turn is a 6 of spades. There's 3 players in the hand.
3 players. Make sure you're feeding 5-5.
Usually when I pull the phone out though, it is a good hand. Huh? God, I'm the worst.
Just jacks.
I should have just not recorded this hand.
Just
I
jack.
Queen Jack. It's clear that pulling out my phone is a bit of a tell here, so in the future, I'm gonna have to start filming more hands so that I can balance my recording of hands range. I stuck around for 2 days of fun rounders action, putting in a little over 11 hours and winning almost $1,500 just at rounders. So as you can see from some of these hands, I ran really well and I probably could have won even more. But the simple fact is that the games in Texas play loose and the swings are inevitable. Special shout out to Nizzy Nice from Fort Wayne, Indiana, a place where I spent a lot of time growing up, for providing the soundtrack for this Embrace the Grind road trip series. The road trip is finishing up next week from Austin and Houston, Texas card houses. What a difference 2 months make. I remember we were sitting here 2 months ago thinking like, what are we gonna do? Like, we have so much that we want to do. We're a little bit behind on bills, but we've crushed the last 2 months financially, and I already feel like a lot of pressure is lifted off of me to the point of where we can maybe even do some traveling to like Asia and Mexico. So got a lot more coming up, but let's close out these last couple days in Texas with a nice little run. See if we can get that up. See if we can get up to 20,000 made just on poker alone. See you guys in the poker room near you. Thanks for following. Say bye to Calvin. Hey, Cal.
Hey, buddy.
Hi. Oh, Calvin's been doing well too.
I'ma give it all I got, all I got. Like 23, I stay on top, stay on top. I do it like it's my last shot, my last shot. We grinding.
One thing I wanted to say was just how awesome everyone has been on the road, and the gifts. It just means so much that people just want to support. They're buying merch. They're giving us gifts. I mean, it's just amazing. So I just want to say thank you.